January 17, 1943, Northern Don River, USSR. There is one rule every soldier on the Eastern Front learns quickly. Whether you wear the star of the Red Army or the insignia of an Axis Expeditionary Corps, you do not get between the Red Army and the moment it decides to come for you. For months in 1942, that rule seemed absolute. When Soviet forces strike, they do not probe, they do not negotiate, they do not stop. They swallow whole armies, they erase divisions, they turn frontline sectors that looked quiet just hours earlier, into killing grounds of ice, smoke, and steel. And the one certainty, the one truth every Axis soldier whispers into his scarf on frozen nights is this: if the Red Army wants a pocket, it will take a pocket. German commanders believe it. Romanian generals believe it. Finnish troops believe it. And Italy, desperately clinging to its place in the Axis hierarchy, believes it most of all. 4 Alpine divisions, 1 infantry corps, air crews, signal companies, more than 235,000 Italians scattered along the Don River live under the shadow of this rule. They know that if the Red Army turns its full weight toward them, their lines will not just bend, they will shatter. For months the rule holds. But in the winter of 1942-43, as Soviet pincers close around Stalingrad, something even larger moves. Something that makes generals in Moscow pause, makes the Stavka staff run their fingers across maps, and makes Joseph Stalin himself lean forward as he receives the first reports. Because the Red Army does not simply defeat Italy's Eighth Army, it annihilates it. And when Stalin hears the full extent of that destruction, when he is told just how completely one of Germany's allies has been erased from the Eastern Front, his reaction will reveal a truth the world has almost forgotten. A truth you're about to walk straight into. Because in January 1943, one man, an Alpini lieutenant named Nuto Revelli, survives the annihilation long enough to witness what no Italian soldier was never meant to see. And through him, you will see how the old rule is broken forever. You're 21 years old when you arrive on the Eastern Front. You are not built for this place. Few are.
Lieutenant Nuto Revelli, born in Cuneo in the Italian Alps, comes from cold mountains, yes, but not this. Not the endless flat white of the Don. Not temperatures that plunge below -30 Celsius. Not winds that strip the skin from your cheeks. Not the silence before a Soviet barrage breaks the world open. You are young, idealistic, and eager to prove yourself when you volunteer. Like many Alpini officers, you believe Italy can carve out its own place in the Axis constellation, earning respect through sacrifice. The newspapers back home glow with talk of honor, duty, and alliance. But out here, in the 2nd Alpini Regiment of the Tridentina Division, none of that matters. Not when your men have insufficient winter clothing, not when your heavy weapons are outdated, not when your supply lines stretch hundreds of kilometers across exposed steppe. You live in dugouts made from scrap wood. You sleep in rotations to avoid freezing. And you begin marking time not in hours, but in frostbite cases. Still, for months the front holds. Your position lies north of Stalingrad along the Don, where Italian, Hungarian, and Romanian units form a thin defensive line. For the Germans, this line is a stopgap, a way to free up Wehrmacht divisions for the great prize, the Volga. For the Soviets, it is an opportunity waiting to be exploited. Because in November 1942, when Operation Uranus encircled the German Sixth Army at Stalingrad, the Soviets didn't stop. They look west. They see the overstretched Axis allies, and they prepare the next blow. Operation Little Saturn. the hammer will fall on the Italian Eighth Army, and you, Lieutenant Revelli, will be standing directly in its path. Your division receives whispers of Soviet troop concentrations, reports of tank brigades, rumors of entire armies redeploying north of the Don. But it doesn't matter. High Command insists you hold.
Because strategically, this front is everything. If Italy's line collapses, the Soviets can sever German supply routes, isolate entire corps, and roll the Axis back hundreds of kilometers. If you fail to hold, the collapse at Stalingrad will spread like a fracture through ice. You're staring into the jaws of a coming storm. You don't know when it will hit, only that it will. And then, one morning, it does. December 1942. The temperature hovers around minus 28 degrees Celsius. At 5:15 a.m., the first Soviet artillery shells scream overhead. They are not ranging shots. They are not harassing fire. They are the opening notes of an orchestral murder. Hundreds, thousands of rounds detonate along the Italian front. Your bunker shakes. Snow becomes shrapnel. Men cover their ears as the earth seems to roar. The barrage lasts 90 minutes. When it lifts, the ground trembles again, but this time from engines. T-34s, T-70s, KV-1s. An entire Soviet armored corps rolls toward the Italian Eighth Army. You hear machine gun bursts. You hear men shouting coordinates. You hear the unmistakable thump as anti-tank guns fire. But the reports are desperate. Range 900 meters, ineffective. Armor too thick. They keep coming. Your line folds in minutes. The Don defense, stretching over 270 kilometers, disintegrates. Romanian units on the flank collapse. German reserves are too far away. The Soviet steamroller advances 20 kilometers in one day. The corridor behind you, your only road west, is clogged with refugees, field kitchens, artillery teams, wounded men, and abandoned wagons. You pull back your company, trying to maintain order, trying to keep your men alive, trying to believe that the retreat is temporary. But the truth becomes clear by day 2. You are not retreating. You are fleeing.
And the Red Army is right behind you. The temperature drops to negative 35 degrees Celsius. Your breath crystallizes inside your beard. When you blink, your eyelashes freeze together. Rifles misfire. Bolts lock in place. Canteens freeze solid. The retreat turns into a column. 20,000 men moving west down a single road, stretching for kilometers. Horses collapse mid-step. Wounded men beg to be carried. Soldiers fall asleep in the snow and never rise. You march for 14 hours a day, stopping only when visibility disappears completely. Every kilometer is another wound. At night, Soviet aircraft circle overhead, dropping flares. Each flare means one thing: artillery is coming. You dive into snowbanks, feel the ground shudder, hear the wet thud of bodies hitting the ice. By the 5th day, frostbite claws at your feet. By the 6th, your boots stiffen like stone. And then the worst moment, when you realize the column is no longer moving forward. It is being herded, pushed west, then south, then west again, always by Soviet pressure, always toward another pocket, another ambush. You hear the word whispered again and again: "Accerchiati," encircled. You have no food left. You melt snow to drink. You cut frozen horse meat with bayonets. You keep your men moving because stopping means death. And just when you think the retreat cannot get worse, it does.
Mid-January 1943. The Tridentina Division receives orders. break through to the town of Nikolaevka. It's the last barrier between you and possible survival. But the road there passes through villages already taken by the Soviets. On the morning of January 18th, your unit reaches the outskirts of WWII, a village of ruined houses and blown-out windows. It looks deserted, but as your column enters, Soviet machine guns open from 3 sides. You hit the ground as rounds whip past your ears. Men scream, horses panic and bolt. A mortar round lands 15 meters away, throwing snow, earth, and bone. You shout orders. Your voice barely carries. You pull your men behind burned wagons, shattered fences, frozen bodies. Return fire snaps across the square. But something is wrong. You hear no German artillery, no supporting fire, no friendly engines. You are alone. The Soviets press in from both flanks. Your ammunition drops to 20 rounds per man, then 10, then 5. You realize the village will become a slaughterhouse unless someone breaks the stalemate. Your commander makes a choice that seems suicidal, a bayonet charge. You fix steel, your men stand, and with a shout that freezes your throat, you run. The distance is 180 meters. You count it without meaning to. 180 meters. 120 meters. 80 meters. 40 meters. The Soviets fall back, they regroup, they fire again, but your men break through.
WWII falls behind you in flames, but the cost is hundreds of dead. The column is thinning. You feel the Soviet grip tightening again. January 26, 1943. Your units, remnants of 9 Italian divisions, reach the outskirts of Nikolaevka. Population, a few hundred. Importance, infinite. Because behind Nikolaevka lies open steppe, your only escape route. But the Soviets have fortified the village. Machine gun nests, anti-tank positions, mortar teams. Infantry companies dug in behind snow berms and stone houses. The Italians number around 18,000 here, though no one knows the real count. The Soviets block the choke point with several thousand troops and interlocking fire. If Nikolaevka doesn't fall, you die here. The attack begins at 9:30 a.m. You advance in waves. The first wave is cut down. The second stalls at the rail embankment. The third digs in and trades fire, unable to move. You crouch behind a splintered rail car as rounds whiz overhead. The snow around you churns with impacts. Men drop beside you, some instantly, some choking on blood that freezes on their lips. The battle rages for 5 hours. Then, at 2 p.m., your corps commander, General Luigi Reverberi, issues a single order: Tridentina avanti. Tridentina, forward. It becomes the shout of the dying and the living all at once. A final assault. No reserves, no fallback. All remaining Alpini surge forward. You run. Your lungs burn. Your vision narrows. Your ammunition dwindles to nothing. You fight with grenades, with bayonets, with rifle butts, with fists. A T-34 appears on your left. Its gun traverses. It fires. The explosion throws you into the snow. Your ears ring. Your mouth fills with ice. But when you stand again, you see something astonishing. The Soviets are breaking. Their line buckles. House by house, barricade by barricade, the Alpini push through. At 4:30 p.m., Nikolaevka falls. A corridor opens. And for the first time in weeks, you can breathe air that does not smell of imminent death. But as you stagger into the night, surrounded by exhausted, starving, frozen survivors, only one thought crosses your mind. How many reached safety? And how many were left behind on the steppe? If you find this kind of forgotten history as fascinating as we do, we'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. We believe these stories of courage, sacrifice, and brutal honesty deserve to be told. And by subscribing, you help ensure they are never forgotten. What Stalin hears in the days following the battle is not simply that the Italians have been defeated. He is told that the Italian Eighth Army has ceased to exist. Of the 235,000 Italians deployed along the Don, more than 84,000 are killed or frozen, 34,000 captured, and tens of thousands simply vanish into the snow, never found, never identified. For Stalin, the annihilation is a strategic confirmation. Germany cannot protect its allies, and without allies, Germany cannot hold the Eastern Front. In Kremlin briefings, reports describe entire Alpine divisions reduced to a few thousand men. They described abandoned guns, smashed artillery, shattered regiments. One aide records Stalin's reaction in a single line. So, there will be no Italians on the Don again. Not mocking, not triumphant, just cold certainty. Because Stalin sees the larger truth. Italy's collapse creates a 300-kilometer breach in the Axis line. Through that breach, Soviet tank armies surge. They threaten Rostov. They threaten Kharkov. They force the Germans into a retreat that does not stop until spring. What the world doesn't realize until later is that the destruction of the Italian Eighth Army triggers a chain reaction. Germany must divert divisions away from Stalingrad. Romanian forces lose their flank protection. Hungarian units collapse soon after. Hitler's southern front becomes a patchwork of exhausted remnants.
The Eastern Front is no longer a German offensive. It is a German survival effort. And Stalin understands that the first major Axis partner has now been broken so completely that Italy will never again recover its military footing. The ripple spreads across Europe. Italian morale craters. Families demand answers. Officers question German leadership. Partisan movements grow. And within 18 months, Italy leaves the Axis entirely. All because of the winter that Lieutenant Revelli survived, when the Red Army erased an army in weeks. You return to Italy thinner, older, and carrying ghosts that never leave. You write down what you saw, names, faces, jokes men told to hide their fear, the sound of boots crunching on ice, the way a man looks when frostbite takes his fingers, the way hope flickers out, but duty doesn't. You remember them all. Giuseppe Ino Garbero, age 20, from Mondovì. Battista Carli, age 22, from Trento. Sergeant Luigi Bertone, age 26, from Cuneo. Alpino Mario Baselga, age 19, from Rovereto. And thousands more whose names are carved into memorials across northern Italy. Young men who froze, who fought, who never came home. Nuto Revelli becomes a witness, an author, a keeper of stories. He spends decades interviewing survivors, collecting letters, documenting the truth. He becomes one of the last voices of the Alpini who escaped the Don. He dedicates the rest of his life to ensuring the world remembers what happened on that frozen retreat, because to him, forgetting would be the final death. And today, as you listen, you become part of that legacy. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing these forgotten stories from the archives. If you want to join us on this mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications.
Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state and tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for ensuring that Nuto Revelli and the more than 84,000 men of the Italian Eighth Army do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.